All right, I'll call to order the Town of Mount Desert Planning Board meeting for September 24th, 2025. Welcome aboard. Kick it off with some introductions. I am William Hanley, Planning Board Chair. We've got Vice Chair Tracy Loftus Keller, Gail Marshall, and Alan Kimmerly. And tonight we're missing Ann Dalton and our alternate Dan Burke. And
I'm not beloved.
yeah, that is the hardest part of the meeting is remembering everybody's names.
You have my empathy, actually.
Even after 10 years of this gig.
You've got a name tag I can start bringing.
We should wear name tags, Alan. That's an excellent idea.
I'll be back at Morris Yachts though.
So not seeing anybody online tonight yet, but item 2 on the agenda, we had approval of minutes and there's no minutes yet.
Bill.
Yes.
You should probably take your agenda out of order just to vote in Meredith.
Yes, thanks. So Kim's reminding me, we were talking about earlier having an additional item on the agenda tonight under item 4 other item C. We were going to add a motion to recommend to the select board Meredith Foster, and I would suggest
Randolph.
yeah, right, Meredith Randolph. And why don't we get a motion to take that out of order and move that up to ahead of item 3 and after item 2?
So moved. Excuse me, so
Second.
moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So just for the record, just a quick recap and just where the Superior Court had remanded the Heel Way subdivision back to the board for reconsideration of the open space requirement of the application. We need a quorum for that. And the original quorum was myself, Tracy, and Meredith. And Meredith has since stepped off the board after consulting with town council and Andy Hamilton and Kim. I reached out to Meredith and asked her if she would so kindly come back on the board as an alternate member. And she immediately said, sure thing. And we need to vote Meredith on as recommend to the select board that she be appointed as an alternate member to the board.
I move we recommend that to the select board that they appoint Meredith Randolph to be an alternate member of the planning board.
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
I will let Claire know to recommend that to the select board, and I'll give Meredith a preemptive thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, motion was granted.
Yes, so, all right. Let's continue on. I guess that was item 2.1. Item 3 tonight, we approve and sign the final plot plans for Area 51 subdivision. So do we need a final?
Yep.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the Area 51 subdivision applications?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And now we,
There.
We
and the
sign.
plans are here and now we sign. Tracy, you wanna,
Be in the second spot
yeah.
here. Are there?
Someone's in the,
You're paying attention.
I think maybe it's easiest if I just get out of the way and then you guys can come around.
That's
JTR.
JTR, yeah.
Okay.
But I can't see, so any copies of them?
Yeah.
Warning.
Yes, because I'm paying so much attention.
And how long does the applicant have to record this?
30 days.
30 days to record it.
30 and 90.
They got 90-day.
90.
Okay. From the date that you sign it, make sure you
Yeah.
date it on the bottom. 24.
And we've had applicants that hadn't.
They expire, then they have to go through the whole process again.
Just your pen?
Thank you.
Rats.
Thank you for enduring the process.
Yeah. It looks like you're.
Stick around and help us change the subdivision ordinance.
Are you?
Process. Thank you. Good luck.
Kimberly, is something up with the,
Looks like it's focused on the back of a computer.
I don't
so
know.
It's pointing down at a computer, I believe.
No,
Looks
it's
like
not, it's,
No.
no, it's not up, it's.
It's the one up top,
yes.
it's pointing at the back of the screen.
It's-
What?
The person who's on Zoom is pointing at the camera at the back of their computer.
Yeah, it's not us.
it's not,
It's
how do we see our?
Turn off his camera. Or turn,
Yeah, can
can
we,
you click on Town of Mount Desert? Does that matter?
This live performance.
I'm just making stuff up here.
yeah, Kim, can you click on view and switch it to us or,
Yeah, we hit
What?
view and change it to speaker,
yeah. Go to view,
to speaker. It should change because we're the only ones talking.
yeah,
Can you, turn off his camera for that?
No, is it ours or is it him?
No,
It's
just
him.
camera.
There you go, click on that.
No, that's
you
not-
know.
Stop video.
Where?
Right there, stop video. Yeah.
Oh, that's helping.
yeah.
Now it's just black.
Are we getting photobombed? No.
Yay, there you go.
Whatever works.
Yeah. All right, moving on, item 4, other. Item 4A, we have an update from the Land Use Zoning Ordinance Advisory Committee.
Well, the land use zoning advisory committee, zoning advisory committee hasn't really tackled the subdivision ordinance because we've done such good work on it all summer. And we spent time at our last meeting going through that portion of it that we did work on last spring before Luso broke for the summer, and that is the mobile home provisions that would be part of this. So we went through that again, and I encouraged anyone who was so inclined, who was present at that meeting, to consider coming and sitting in on this meeting. So we didn't have to keep reinventing the wheel. I personally don't think that I don't think that this has to go through the Luso. It's ultimately the planning board's responsibility, and the Luso is there to try to help get stuff done. They don't have any role in like putting it before the public or, so. My intention would be that that committee not reinvent the wheel by going through the subdivision ordinance. We can, once we're done with it, we can certainly explain to them what we're doing. And see if anybody has any other ideas about it, but to workshop it twice is a big job. And it didn't seem like it was gonna be particularly productive. We frankly don't get a big turnout at that meeting.
Mhm.
So, it's not like there's lots of voices that we're missing at the moment. But, so that's where we stand with that, and, um,
Any questions for Gail? Alrighty, well, thank you. So moving on under other, item 4B. Discuss and review planning board applications, subdivision and land use zoning ordinance amendments. And I believe we have someone from Noel Musson's
Yeah.
office
Yeah.
here tonight.
Matt,
Lesson group.
Yep, well, great. I am gonna turn it over to you and you have the floor.
Sure. So, we'll just break the discussion down in a couple ways tonight. I'll probably just kind of present the ideas that were discussed at the Luso meeting regarding the mobile home parks ordinance and get the board's feedback on those ideas. And Gail, thank you for your thorough review so far, because it's hard for me to find typos in this thing after staring at it for so long. So, but you have some,
I know, and I miss a lot of them too.
but you have some questions. I figured I would just go over those questions and get the board's feedback
Find my
on
letter to you.
how to handle those. And then at the Luso committee, I went over kind of like the general timeline for getting this on the warrant. So what the dates kind of look like and the schedule we can work with looks like moving forward. And then, yeah, if you guys have any general comments about the draft so far, I still have to schedule a meeting with the town's attorney to review it. But I think in overall pretty good shape, largely for as many pages as it is. And just the document itself will be tweaking more than changing anything. And there's like kind of, again, tonight, a discussion of. So LD 1829 got passed recently, which is the omnibus bill that kind of touches on density and lot sizes and that sort of thing. That could impact how you handle some of these specialized subdivisions like attainable, affordable is pretty state regulated in terms of the density bonus has to be 2.5 times the base density, so that it's kind of prescribed for you, but in terms of attainable or cluster subdivisions, the town has like a lot of flexibility in the types of bonuses that can be granted there. So just kind of talking through policy wise what that could look like in certain areas of town, getting your feedback on how you might want to handle that. Where you might not want to have like, so if you're already getting a density bonus from 1829, maybe you don't actually need to have like as big of a bonus for some of these specialized subdivisions. So just finding out what would make sense with the board in terms of granting a bonus to encourage certain types of housing, or if density is no longer really a good idea, what other types of incentives could the town provide?
Maybe we should just pause and remind everybody or bring everybody up to date on how we broke in this proposal. We broke out the different types of housing, like, because it's different than.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we wanted to try to improve on.
Right, and so there are now, I think it's section 4.5 on the ordinance, yep.
You have a
So,
page number?
It starts on page 20. no,
24,
starts earlier.
21.
Yeah, 21 is where the.
Yeah, with cluster.
Subdivision start. With cluster, so there's cluster, its own subdivision, it's like the most basic. Or not the most basic, but like. There's no like real restrictions on it necessarily, except for like the physical. Elements of the subdivision, but there's no like income requirements or anything like that. But it does get a bonus for, it's an efficient subdivision, so it utilizes less. Lot coverage to achieve, or like land coverage if you're splitting it into lots. To achieve sensor housing. And so that has bonuses for density in that.
And that encourages open space.
Yes, and so that is
Not
always,
necessarily some of the others.
yes, that's always a requirement for cluster is open space of some sort. Where you're trading off, again, if you're not developing the land.
Right.
For the structures themselves, you can either make it common recreational area. Save it as like for wetland protection or something like that. But it has to be something that's like usable or benefits the community that you are building along with it. And then there's the attainable housing subdivision, which it follows a similar model to affordable housing in terms of having to reach a certain. We're having to reach a certain income requirement, but the town has listed that as 250% of AMI for purchasing or for both purchasing and renting. And so,
Definition of that is on page 37.
yes. There's affordable housing, which definition for that is on page 36, and those are HUD standards with 80% AMI for purchasing. Then 120% AMI for renting.
And that's what we're now calling workforce housing.
No, that's affordable housing. Attainable housing is what was workforce housing.
Oh, okay.
But-
Workforce was 250?
No, there was no like percentage like that. We created that in our discussions.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know what number was really right, so we had a discussion on that. I think I only had it at 180%. We discussed bringing it up to 250. So those are the specialized subdivision types, and again, they are currently offered at different bonuses. We have depending what you're providing for both attainable and affordable, we provide at least 51% of your units have to be priced at that level. And then-
What's the nutshell difference between attainable and affordable?
Income
so-
levels.
No, yeah, affordable is like a separate term of art where it's like HUD standards, you have to allow, you can only allow up to a certain income level. Or attainable is kind of like a town's definition of. If someone wants to build housing that's like reserved, you still would allow people in theory that could afford attainable or affordable housing. But it increases the income level to allow like workforce housing, workforce that makes more than what the affordable housing would allow. But not like all for wealthy people. So like a household or making like 100K a year would still be able to live in attainable housing, so they wouldn't be able to be eligible for affordable housing.
I think in part it's a recognition of the reality that when it's going to be very difficult to build things at the 80% level in this environment and actually have it help.
It's like, yeah, and construction on the island in particular, but this part of Maine is super high, so like. Anything you can do to incentivize. Or give developers more options, I suppose, in what they're developing. But still trying to get them to target the types of housing that the town wants to encourage. Mobile home parks is really the last subdivision types, and functional land divisions are also under here, even though they're technically not subdivisions, but. They're like a unique specialized term that really only Desert has. And so, yeah, those were all the specialized types, and the Luso was working on the mobile home park portion of that. So most of what's in there is state required. But some ideas that came out of the discussion last week were that I misunderstood in conversations with Kim previously that the town didn't allow centrally managed septic systems, but in like a case like the mobile home park. It would, so like reinserting, I'd taken out the state's provisions around minimum lot size and lot width for centrally managed shared septic systems, and I have to just reinsert that into the ordinance. And then, so that would go under, if you're looking at the mobile home park section, it's 4.5.4 B, that'll become B3. There's already a couple for lots served by public sewer and then lots served by individual subsurface systems. And then there was a discussion on, most of the state's language, CAN language, is about mobile home lots, as if the mobile home park will be split into separate lots. But then making that applicable to mobile home park sites as well, so in case the mobile home park is all still one lot. If they're splitting the sites, they would still have to follow these rules as if they were lots, so kind of spelling that out. And then. If you look under, that's just a general comment for most of the section, because it comes up in a few places. And then if you look at section D,
Do we have any mobile home
We have one and,
Otter Creek? You know,
yeah.
yeah, that kind of came up in Luso too, where. It's just probably very unlikely that someone would look to build a mobile home park in Mount Desert now, just because land's so expensive, but. It's not impossible, I suppose, like if someone really wanted to do it. And then, but if you look at section D1 and then 4 underneath, talks about carports, that's a state requirement, so you have to allow carports, to not be subject to side yard setbacks. But then there was a discussion about defining carports and then maybe putting like a size limit to them, just so. They're not, taking up too much space on the lot, and then also, it's not being used for additional storage aside from cars or like. Won't put their trash cans under there, it's fine, but they're not storing a bunch of extra stuff.
Can I ask you to back up for me, because I'm slow in catching up with you. Where is in the mobile home park provision is this stuff about septic and joint septic?
It's not in there yet.
Not in there yet.
After that,
he was
we
gonna
talked
add.
about what we discussed, yeah.
So I noticed that it's in the cluster housing. Common water and sewer.
Yes,
And is it not possible to just do something similar?
no, mostly because. I mean, you could just put a line in there saying you're allowing it for this type of use, but so similar to like the 1 and 2 under section B for mobile home parks. The state has like minimum lot size, so like the minimum lot size for a shared septic for mobile home parks is 12,000 square feet. And the minimum width is some other number, so that just has to get added in.
So we're constrained by the state.
You could make it less restrictive than the state does, but I'm pretty sure 12,000 square feet is based on a best practice, so like. You might wanna just follow that.
Could, it's just packing in a lot of septic systems. Yeah.
Well, if you have an individual septic system, it's 20,000 square feet, but again, because the shared septic, centrally managed system, that goes down to 12,000 square. feet.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And the same thing with water?
It doesn't talk about water, so like, they could do any type of water system they want. Wells or centrally managed like system, or if they're tying.
If they're not, assuming they're not on.
Right, if they're not tying into the town system.
I got a question on, there's a little development up in Town Hill. Where they took. I guess you call them sheds,
I know.
and yeah, and they made a little rental area out of that. How would we classify? Something like that? You know, it came in on wheels, but then it got plopped down. Would that be like a mobile home park or just a cluster?
That's probably not a mobile home,
No.
the state has
I
like a
would say
very
it's just
specific definition for
It could be a
manufactured
cluster
homes.
or. Attainable or affordable, depends how many, because that, again, it kicks in.
Are they already year round?
Yeah.
Okay,
That would be an avenue. That would be easy for,
There's 2 of those in Bar Harbor,
yeah,
there's one down from.
well,
Camp State.
they're all short term, that's all they are.
Huh?
Are they all short term?
Can't do it,
No, they can't do,
not a vacation rental unless it was for the ordinance.
right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Some people are exploring, I mean, some of those manufactured homes, the micro homes are coming in on, they're trailer based. And they're manufactured in a warehouse.
Right,
I don't
so,
know if they have a stamp or not.
They're a
but
minimum.
And so after
size,
20,
I
if
think.
they're after 2020 or 22, they have to be certified through the state.
right, well, there's a lot of like, again, like terms here, so like the state has very specific definitions for manufactured homes. They've got specific definitions for modular homes, and they've got specific definitions for tiny homes. So, like, I don't know what this development technically is, like the size of everything, but it probably falls under one of those definitions. Cause it can't be a mobile home and a tiny home, it has to be one or the other. Cause tiny homes
Oh, yes,
are
it can.
supposed to be like, are able to be on a chassis, but they just aren't motorized, but neither is like a mobile home technically, so like.
Some of them are manufactured in warehouses as opposed to people's backyard. So if I've seen pictures out west of people who have the mini homes on trailers, and they basically built, it's not a cluster, but it kind of looks like a trailer park.
Yeah.
With a septic system.
What happens if you build them
Can't
in
really do that.
place though?
Was
Is
that?
that, if you stick build them in place?
Well, that's just, yeah, that's a house, yeah.
Yeah,
They have to meet the code that
but what happens if they're under like they're under us?
you have, there's certain specifications for tiny homes.
Like
It's
if,
gotta be a certain size, and then it has to have certain other, it's got a whole list of stuff under appendix C, under the IRC code.
we're doing one in Bar Harbor right now, and it's been curious, like, and they want to rent it, and not familiar with that, and I don't think they
They
can.
can live in it and rent their primary dwelling, but you can't get a VR1 anymore, VR2.
Yeah,
Which is non-residential, non-homestead rental for
yeah,
vacation.
because I think that's exactly what they're doing. And for us, they needed, I think it was a minimum of 500 square feet to be able to rent it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Bar Harbor had a dwelling unit minimum of 500 square feet across the board. But then, yeah, I don't know, Bar Harbor.
It's a curious, and I won't get sidetracked, but it's a curious project type because there's no efficiency to it with it being pre-manufactured or anything like that. Like they just want a tiny little 500 square foot stick-built house, and
So it's like an accessory dwelling unit or something?
but they don't have another house on the property. They're building that first, and they're gonna live in that and then come back later, I guess, and build the primary residence. And I think when they build the primary residence, then they lose their ability to rent that thing.
No, they can rent it year round,
Yeah.
but if they want to, you can rent your homestead as a vacation rental in Bar Harbor.
Mhm.
But, so a lot of people are thinking about using the LD 2003 to build an ADU that they live in the summer
Mhm.
while they're renting their primary dwelling, but the main house, the one that they have the homestead exemption on. But you can't rent an ADU in Bar Harbor anymore.
It's nice that they're moving to a campground, which a lot of people have done for a long time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Afford it.
Have we seen any impacts of the new ADU law here?
2003.
Yeah.
Always allowed it, I mean, before this even became a mandate, we allowed the 8, but with that, at that point, though, you had to have at least a minimum lot area. Now you don't,
The one that came into effect a year ago in July.
that's,
Yeah,
that one, you don't have to meet the minimum lot area,
yeah.
like like,
Outside of the shoreline, so.
oh yeah, that's different.
Yeah.
It's in the shoreline zone, you gotta meet the dimensional requirements for a principal and an ADU, doesn't
Yeah.
matter. But if it's inland, before you had to at least meet the minimum lot area before it changed last year. Now you can have it, even if you don't meet the minimum lot area.
In our town, do all of these little tiny and micro and manufactured homes qualify as ADUs?
Yeah, I mean, you're limited to a cap of the principal building size, right, by the living
Yeah.
area, 75%.
Yeah.
And be at least a minimum 190 square feet, but then it can't exceed 75% of the principal building of the living area of the main house.
If we can back up for a minute on the subdivision ordinance,
What page are you hitting?
to just,
Page number?
when we're done, I'll
May I ask one
Oh,
more
sure.
question? Can backpedaling a little bit, can you just in lay terms to just update us on what the law, the 1829 was?
I mean, it was a lot.
Just, that's it.
So there were quite a few things, again, they're not, some of them are gonna get challenged, some of them are, there's gonna be changes in the. Emissions and revisions bill that are probably gonna get put in front of the legislature in July, January. And so like, some of this might change, but as it got passed and signed. You're looking at minimum units per lot, so. All residential lots must allow 3 units, and then like you can't prohibit a triplex pretty much on a lot. And then you're connected in a growth area connected to water and sewer, you have to allow 4 units per lot. And again, like, you know, if you have a minimum lot size that matches what the state requires.
Yeah.
And they just don't meet that, you don't have to allow them to have 4 units, but you just can't stop them in theory from having 4 units. Otherwise, like you can't say, this is a residential lot, like in a residential area, it's zoned for residential. You can't say you can't have like 4 units on a lot. You know, the dimensional requirements may prevent them from having 4 units, but you can't outright say you can't have 4 units. Next is accessory dwelling units, town already does this, but you have to allow 1 ADU per single family lot. In all zones, and then no owner occupancy or dimensional standards or additional parking can be required. So again, like, this town already doesn't allows the ADU to forgo the dimensional standards. I'm pretty sure you would allow them to forgo the additional parking too, right? That's the same as a single
We
family.
don't.
Yeah.
Calculate parking for lot coverage, yeah, and we don't, there's no specific as to how many. Parking spaces are required on a property.
And then the only one, and the town does this, but you couldn't. Then start to enforce ADUs by requiring that they have an owner occupancy requirement. On the lot, so someone who doesn't live on the lot. Can still build like an ADU on it if they have a primary dwelling unit, but just don't live in it. They can't be required to live there and to have the ADU, they can still build an ADU on that lot.
Are they required to have the dwelling, have a single family dwelling or a 1 family dwelling on the lot to be able to have an ADU, or can they?
No, you
Build
have a
and add,
business.
like build a single family house and then add an ADU,
Yeah,
same
they have
time,
to be allowed to do that.
you can do that.
And then, so separate from that is minimum lot sizes in growth areas, you're connected to public water and sewer. Minimum lot size will have to be allowed to be 5,000 square feet. The Northeast Harbor, Seal Harbor, I think is both water and sewer, right? Yeah, so those areas could be impacted. Again, I think be part of your growth area too. Town's currently going through a comp plan update. And so like Noel and Suzanne are aware that they should have a discussion on. Again, like maybe what. In the layman's terms, maybe makes sense as like a growth area. I think they were talking about some of the, like making sense as like. An area that could be a growth area, but. Based on some of these changes, you might want to come up with a different name for it, the comp plan, just like as a development interest or something. like
Well,
that.
right now, in the prior comp plan, Somerville is identified as.
So we're gonna want to.
Well, there are gonna be.
So you tell me this season that you
Yeah,
want
Somerville
to
doesn't have to be.
build in Somerville, no, I think that needs to change,
So it does not.
said. Build the water system and then talk to us,
Mhm.
but
And like even so like Somerville doesn't have water and sewer, so it wouldn't be subject to the same, these standards I just read, but like,
we have sewer on the main street, but that's all,
but not water.
our portion of the main street.
And then, again, the state's basing all these new. Changes off of growth areas all of a sudden, then you don't necessarily wanna make everywhere a growth area, you're gonna wanna limit that and then just kind of plan. For development in a different way in certain other areas,
Right,
cause you don't know what the state will come up with next for growth areas required to do. But so in addition to the 5,000 square feet, if you're in a growth area and connected to public water and sewer. You have to allow a density of 1,250 square feet per unit for the first 4 units. Which again goes back to that 4 units required if you're in a growth area and have water and sewer. Because 5,000 square feet divided by 4 is 1,250 square feet. But then if you, but the density after the first 4 units can't be greater than 5,000 square feet per unit. So again, if you have like a 10,000 square foot lot, you can. At minimum, you'd have to allow 5 units on that lot, because there'd be the 1,250 for the first 4. Then you could allow 5,000 for the 5th unit
that's with sewer and water.
with sewer and water, yep. And so related to that, but with a different scenario, if you have a minimum lot size for, if you're in the growth area, but you have to use a private septic. it has to follow Title 12 standards, which right now, and it probably will stay that way, is 20,000 square feet per unit. And that's if you're using a private septic. And then if you have and the density for that scenario where it's a growth area, but you're on a private septic, you cannot require a minimum lot size of greater than 20,000 square feet. And so. And the third scenario that they present is if it's a minimum lot size outside of the growth area, but you are connected to public water and sewer. You cannot have a greater minimum lot size requirement of 5,000 square feet. But the density requirement is 5,000 square feet per unit for the first 2 units. Then you could increase it after that. And then that's the most complicated part probably. And again, I think the town already does this, but if not, it's in the subdivision ordinance drafting. The density for affordable housing has to be 2.5 times the base density. For what the town provides for any other development in that same zone. Or same area, and then the height of affordable housing, you have to allow a minimum of an extra 14 feet or 1 story. And height to an affordable housing project, so. You have to allow these 14 feet extra, you could allow more. I'm thinking of the subdivision ordinance, I just went with the 14 feet. And then planning board review, this changes what the planning board has to review, so if. A project that technically is a subdivision. But it's 4 or 3 dwelling units within the same structure, they now don't go to the planning board. Kim reviews them as an administrative review through code. But again, it's only if it's 3 or 4 units within the same structure, if you're building 3 or 4 units on the same lot, but they're separate structures. It still comes to the planning board for review. And then there's the accessory dwelling unit allowances, they have to be allowed on non-conforming lots.
So what does that mean? So,
Means if you have a non-conforming lot.
yeah, you
Yeah.
can put an
You can have
ADU.
another dwelling on it.
What happens if you can't meet the dimensionals, like the setbacks?
Dimensional requirements don't apply to it.
Yeah, it doesn't,
Yeah.
you just have to meet the setbacks, and we have distance between buildings, does that? That would apply?
You have to meet the,
Fire?
if,
Well, yeah, for fire purposes, for state fire.
so say, if it's a non-conforming lot and there's no buildable area, can you still put the ADU on it?
What do you mean, no
You
building?
don't have-
area?
Well, like say all the setbacks don't really allow for a use
Well, the
buildable.
other, then you'd have to have variances.
Yeah.
Setback variances,
See if you can get those, but those are hard to.
Mhm.
unless you get the setback at least from your neighbors.
Yeah, setback waiver for your ADU on your non-conforming lot as a neighbor.
Well, I mean, you could in theory.
That's such a
conforming
weird-
lot where like you already have a single family home on it. And like, but it's like grandfathered in for so long, and like
Mhm.
maybe you just wanna. Like split your house then into a duplex, but one of them's technically an ADU,
Mhm.
like you now would have to allow it, even though you might not have like the technically the lot area for it.
Mhm.
But it would still meet setbacks, and you're not really expanding the. Developable area, you're just changing the structure.
Or up over a garage or
Or
something.
something like that. There's smart ways to do it, someone could try and be foolish and push the limits on it, but go for a variance and everything like that, but. Again, I don't think the town would have prevented like, and with the way the ordinance is currently written, if you wanted to add an ADU to your garage on a non-conforming lot, I don't think the ordinance reads in a way that. That wouldn't have been allowed because.
If your garage was non-conforming on a non-conforming lot, can you convert it into an ADU? Like if the,
This-
That would be a change of use of a non-conforming structure, so if it's technically just a garage.
yeah,
Right now for storage, but you wanna convert it to an ADU. You'd have to go to planning board for the change of use of a
Mhm.
non-conforming structure. But then you guys gotta look at, obviously will be change of use to an adverse impact to the area.
Mhm.
And then if you approve it, then. It can be converted.
This is like a law school class.
So what?
What if the guy was holding a flag?
The, right, so then just again, you have to allow occupancy and construction of an ADU unit if the owner does not reside on the lot. The last 3 parts,
It's this training thing.
yeah, well, we'll get to that, that's the last one.
Your grandfather.
You can't require sprinklers and ADUs, that are attached to one or two family units. So again, if there's like a triplex, someone wants to put an ADU is attached to one of those. They will have to sprinkle it, but again, the town can't require sprinklers if it's a single family home or a duplex and they're putting an ADU attached to.
They wouldn't count that as like a triplex,
Not
multi-
anymore.
multi-family,
Yeah.
so state fire marshal wouldn't require that. to be sprinkled.
I think the state fire marshal would
Firewalls.
could still require a firewall, but not a sprinkler.
Ugh.
Yeah. And then they changed the definition of the subdivision to kind of come in line with the. New review process where again, if you create 5, or it's for units only, dwelling units only, if you create 5 or more units in 5 years. Within the same structure. It's a subdivision with 3 or 4 units within the same structure now is no longer a subdivision.
So we have until June of 2026 to make changes.
27,
27.
yes.
So the discussion at the Luso was actually how active should we be in generating language for all of these things, given the scuttlebutt that a bunch of them are gonna be changed?
One more. Planning board has to receive training within 180 days of the
Oh,
point.
that was irrelevant.
You had a question about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like,
That's like the MMA stuff though, isn't it?
well, it could be any type of training, but MMA.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably the most easiest one to access.
And you don't have to do it every year. I mean, it's like, I think you have to.
Not like continuing education
Yeah.
credits or.
Yeah, the state does not require continuing education for planning.
Right,
Okay.
you learn on the job.
So yeah, this sales point, it's hard to tell which of this, like, is gonna get challenged and survive, or which of this will get challenged at all, or what is gonna get changed in the. The emissions and revisions bill that will probably go forward in January. So again, there's things that. If the town's like uncomfortable with, they may wanna wait, to implement. But again, it's a policy discussion, like if there are these items that's like, well, we may wanna encourage this anyway. Some of it you can't wait for, like the sprinklers and ADUs, that has to go, cause that's technically in effect today. And like the change in definition of subdivision, and that sort of, and the training piece, I think are the 3 pieces that were today.
So I would anticipate the Luso committee is going to try to sift through that with you and figure out what we need to present.
Or what,
Changes now. For this-
yeah, I mean, some of it, again, like we might not even need to do anything technically, or just a line in the ordinance, like the sprinkler piece, like.
Right,
There's not like a ton of discussion on that. Like the planning board training piece, it's not gonna go in an ordinance, it's not just a policy that you have to
right.
do. I mean, there is a planning board ordinance, you could just put a line in there requiring that, but as long as you're keeping up with it. And have records that you're keeping up with it, you're in compliance.
Is there anyone here who hasn't done one of those trainings at some point, the MMA trainings?
It's been a while.
Yeah, I know,
I
but
went to 2, so.
I don't think they changed much. Seemed pretty static to me when I took it.
But yeah, so I think the biggest piece that would change is the review process for 3 or 4 dwelling units, which. Again, like I could just move forward and make the change in the subdivision ordinance, for your guys to review,
Mhm.
which wouldn't change much, it would change the definition of. You know, actually, it would probably make it easier and shorter, because like minor. Structure subdivisions essentially go away. Cause that definition of that is creates 4 or fewer dwelling units that trigger subdivision review.
So actually, this is what I wanted to ask us to go back to, was just reminding people how we've broken out the different types of application processes for different types of projects, so maybe we could just like hit all of those so people are
Sure.
up to date on that.
Yeah, so there's 2 ways that's getting broken down now.
Can we, before we jump into that, I have a question on the top of page 25.
Yeah.
Where it says the minimum density shall be 50 units per acre.
That's one of the things that might change with. LD 1829. Yeah, so if the benefit was you're allowing a minimum lot size of 4,000 square feet for a attainable housing. Subdivision. You're then adding a minimum density of 50 units per acre. And then again, like you get development bonuses past that, but if you have a 4,000 square foot lot That's about 1/10 of an acre. So you would be allowed to have 5 units on a 4,000 square foot lot at the start. For a attainable housing. unit.
And this says 50.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, 50 units per acre, but you have to pay lot size of 4,000 square feet. Or bigger.
Okay.
So if it's 4,000 square feet, you get 5 units.
Right, okay.
That could just
Alright.
say that, but
That's dense.
It's
Okay.
apartment buildings,
I guess.
a lot of studios.
I say that, though, it's completely in the town's control, there's nothing saying you have to keep it at that.
Mhm.
And if you think. It goes to town vote and people are gonna see that and freak out, I could probably think of a less scary way to write it, because 50 units, I understand the popping number.
Yes,
if
yes.
You're not doing the math back and forth.
Yes,
So I can think of a way to rewrite that.
well, we do need to have a good way to explain the math. Cause I find, my head starts spinning on it pretty quickly.
It's confusing, without a doubt.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to see like an example.
A chart.
Attainable, yeah, and then affordable and showing lot size and how many units and how you break it down.
Yeah. Not a bad idea at all.
That would be very helpful, I think, to a lot of us.
All chart.
Yeah.
You are here.
And throughout my notepad pages I had where I was drawing rectangles and splitting them up and writing lot
Mhm.
sizes on them and saying like, what would this actually look like if it got built?
I think that would be helpful.
Like, I think, yeah, if there's a minimum density, there should also be a maximum density.
Yeah.
So again, like. If you do have like a huge lot for some reason, get connected to waters, that's doing attainable housing. There would be a maximum number of units that could go on the lot too. But good point, so back to the types of review.
So we have on page 2,
Yeah, there's the, so you're breaking out land and structure reviews, it's a minor and major versions of both. Minor land subdivisions are defined as a review, that creates 4 or fewer lots, so essentially 3 or 4 lots. In a subdivision, and so again, generally very small, even for a land subdivision. And then there's the major, which would be 5 or more units on a lot. Or sorry, in a project, and then 5 or more lots, sorry, in a project, and then you go into structure subdivision. Minor was defined as 4 or fewer dwelling units. This could exist, there just have to be a line added that says it's 4 or fewer dwelling units on a lot that are not part of the same structure. Because that is the piece that the state has removed from the subdivision. Definition.
so if it's 4 or fewer units in the same structure, it's gonna go to King.
Yes.
Okay.
But if someone builds like 4 single family homes in the same lot, it'll still come to the planning board. And then there's the major structure subdivision, which was 5 or more dwelling units on a lot. And again, whether that's in the same structure or not, that would still come to planning board under the state's name. Then there was a discussion of simultaneous subdivision of land and structures, so. I mean, they can be small projects in theory, but just because it's a complicated nature of subdividing land and structure. That will always come to planning board. And so like even if you have 1 lot, or you had a lot, split that into 2 lots and then build a duplex on the new lot. That would still have to come to planning board, even though it's in theory still a small project. But you're splitting both land and subdivision in the same, or structure in the same project.
But the real difference that we're making is that if it's a major project, you have to do 3 steps. You have to do the site plan, preliminary and final review,
Yes.
but you don't do the sketch plan. If it's a small project.
Well, yeah, you don't have to, like. So,
Oh, right, yeah, you're not required to do it.
Yes, but for major projects, there would be a 3-step process, and I go back and forth about how necessary that is for Mount Desert. I mean, like in a town like Ellsworth, where they do get like large, like 70-unit apartment buildings and stuff like that.
Mhm.
It is very helpful, and I think it's helpful to the developer too, to have a sketch plan. Preliminary and final. But again, with the largest subdivisions that come here, maybe it's not really about the size of the development, but maybe it's more about the politics of the development, where you might want to have 3 meetings, 3 chances for the public to come and provide comment. That was kind of the thought there, but
So in theory, you, under state law, you could simply have,
state law only requires 2 meetings.
Right.
You're allowed to have up to 3, but there has to be 2, at least 2.
and do they define what has to be in those meetings?
Yes, which is like the review that.
So it's the preliminary and the final.
Well, yeah, you can have, so, no, technically, the state only requires a sketch review and then
And then
a
that final,
final.
Oh,
There
okay.
has to be the final public hearing.
huh,
There has to be 2 meetings, and then I think a better way of doing it is a preliminary and a final, both with the public hearing at them.
what's different between the preliminary and the final?
So preliminary are focused on completeness, so in theory, like an applicant technically turns in a complete application. But there are still questions or things that aren't necessarily addressed very well,
Okay,
and that's the board's opportunity to say, well, we'd like more information on this, because. You haven't met your burden of proof really, if this were final, we wouldn't have been able to vote it through, because the burden of proof has.
so I presume that what you could do instead of having the preliminary, you could have somebody submit the plan, you could do the sketch. You could have somebody submit the plan, and if it, but then have a provision to be able to move it to a subsequent meeting. If the board finds it's not complete or not ready for action, as opposed to making everybody do it, that's, I guess, what I'm.
I mean, if I were gonna get rid of a required meeting, I would get rid of the sketch. I think preliminary, like, essentially has to be required, and then, cause the way the state uses sketch. Is essentially a preliminary, but because they can allow for a 3-meeting process.
Mhm.
Like, the way that I've seen it, like in towns that do have 3-meeting processes, sketch is like super low stakes, just like come talk about your project,
Right.
give you a hand drawn.
That's what we do.
Thing, right? And then there's preliminary, which would then be like the completeness check that sketch is defined as in the subdivision or state law. And then there's the final, which is the same as.
I guess the one thing that I wonder about the sketch is that, come on in, let's talk, is we're expected to we're not making decisions.
Yeah.
But we're expected to offer erudite opinions about what you're gonna need. And somebody's bringing in something on the back of a piece of paper and with some other things. I just wonder
I wouldn't
how
say,
ready a planning board actually is in that situation to give opinions that's as informed and informative as they could be.
I wouldn't say a sketch plan, you should be giving opinions on what they need, because it's always the applicant's job to provide the information. At sketch, you can ask questions about the project as you see it, like if they haven't addressed something in their sketch, you can be like, well, how are you going to address X, Y, or Z?
Uh-huh.
And then they can either say, I don't know yet, and you're like, well, you should prepare an answer for that when you come back for preliminary.
Mhm.
Or if they do have an answer, I wouldn't say. I want to necessarily give an opinion one way or the other, but say, okay, thanks, you've already thought about that, like, that's good, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, all right.
Would you suggest a site visit to the property?
And the project, I mean,
Huh?
it would depend on the project, I guess, like, or what's that issue in the project, I wouldn't do a site visit for every project.
You wouldn't,
No,
that's what we got, they do, get familiarized with the area.
well, I mean, so like, the only reason I say I wouldn't is because again. Just my experience in Ellsworth, like it's already like very largely developed, and like as I knew like most of the areas of the town. The only time I had 2 site visits scheduled, one was right there, just making a long road that went to private property, and the board had never seen that area or that land before. So we did a site visit to see what the road track would be
Well,
like.
these guys don't
I
get
think the big,
familiarized with properties.
yeah, big,
Well, then, yeah, you could
Yeah.
in theory, I mean, I wouldn't require it in the ordinance, but the board does
Right.
have a practice of
Right.
requesting site visits.
I like being able to
I
visualize.
like having a site visit because sometimes the sketch plans are, plus the sketch plan review process is pretty sketchy.
Yeah.
You know, and it's hard to kind of put it in context sometimes.
And so, yeah, I mean, you can schedule them whenever you want,
That's not gonna change the process that we're trying to.
I mean, the simple one we just did, for example, you go there and you go like, oh. Okay,
Right.
oh, it's 9 acres and this is here and this is way over there and.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, again, like the
You
board.
visualize where the other
can
properties
call
lines are.
For a site visit, you just have to post it and treat it like a regular meeting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's allowed.
We're very diligent about waiting until the exact moment of the meeting to start.
Or 5 minutes extra.
Mhm.
All right.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Under the, sorry, Gail,
No.
administrative procedures and fees at 3.1.3, where it's minor structure subdivision plan for less. Page 2,
Yep,
where it was minor,
okay,
structure subdivision plan of 4 or pure.
yes.
Last sentence, it says a minor subdivision. Subdivision shall undergo a preliminary and final review before the planning board.
Yeah.
Isn't that me? Did you just?
No, so I'm gonna keep this definition the way it is. I'm gonna add a line that says, well, I'm gonna keep part of that definition the way it is, but at the end of. Where it says creates 4 or fewer dwelling units, I'd say that are not part of the same structure. Cause then they would still go to the planning board, but then we'll change the definition of subdivision to reflect that. If it's,
Just one building.
well, probably it's like a note or something. that
Yes, it's one.
Says like if it's in the 3 or 4 units within the same structure, it is not a subdivision.
Moving target.
Yeah.
My sense was that the language of the process itself and the information that's required is pretty similar to the existing subdivision ordinance, so we haven't made any.
Yeah, because I mean, everything that was in the existing subdivision ordinance is state required. Well, there are a few extra things that Mount Desert has, but most of it is state required. You have to review those things every time you review a subdivision.
Right.
Well, as far as the performance standards go, I mean, you're talking about like the information on the plan. That gets like, it's just a very long list of things, but again, it's like that is telling the applicant, you know, like if you do check all these boxes, like in theory. And all this information is in your packet and on the plan. You will have also answered the performance like standard questions. In some capacity. And so that's like, again, completeness versus does it actually answer the question, and that's what preliminary is for.
I do think we did, I don't remember what the current ordinance says, but we made it clear in this process that each of the meetings will be will be public meetings, and they will be opportunities for members of the public to speak during the consideration of those applications. And then we just talked about the fact that it would be up to us, for example, to try to manage that and make sure, for example, people weren't just saying the same things over and over. You know, find diplomatic ways to say, just want to point out that when the board hears something, the board hears something, and then the board doesn't need. It doesn't. It's not an exclamation point for the board to hear it. It's like,
Yeah, no, I mean, you could literally just have like a script that you read at the beginning of every meeting essentially, where it's like.
yes,
You know, if you have public comment, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
yes,
You know, if you hear that your comment or has already been made, just like reference that's already been made, don't go and explain it in full again. If you do, the chair of the board has the right to ask you to skip to your next point or something like that.
right. Now, do we anticipate, how much would you expect us to anticipate there being a dialogue and during public comment as opposed to the public commenting?
Yeah, I mean, that happens. Again,
But the public does voir dire instead of.
yeah, I mean, so like, they're not really supposed to ask the applicant questions, but they can say to the board, like, hey, we've heard this presentation. You know, the plans are publicly available, I reviewed them, I still have this question, and the board can be like, oh, that's a good question, like, maybe we should ask that of the applicant, and then the board can ask.
So it goes this way.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, I think a lot of planning boards, if someone asks the question, the chair or someone on the chair usually will just look at the applicant and be like, well, do you have an answer to that? And just streamline it a
Right.
bit, but like, yeah. But like, there really shouldn't be like a
Back and forth.
vast, like, back and
Right.
forth between the applicant and someone who's speaking in the public, yeah.
During the preliminary.
During any of the public.
During any of them.
meetings. I mean, like, this conversation really They can talk to each other, but like you don't want it to be like a constant, like where the board is
Yeah.
now just sitting and observing,
yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Conversation back
Yeah.
and forth. Cause there may be things that someone wants information to, but it's really not required. And so like the board could say like, well, do you have an answer to that? If we're like, no, and it's like, okay, well, it's really not required, and they don't have an answer, so like. Go on. Like, I had somebody asking like, an applicant, like.
It's the random.
Like 13 children trouble sleeping, like the light's gonna get in their window, and it's like. Probably not, but like, I'm not gonna make the applicant answer that question, you know.
Just jumping around, is there a minimum habitable footprint requirement in the town, or is that coming from the state?
I mean, habitable footprint.
I mean, like,
So,
yeah, like something you can dwell in, you know, like a minimum
Like a-
dwelling
yeah, minimum
unit.
Square footage.
Yeah.
8 by 8 garden shed?
I don't know if Massa's are.
Well, ADU that has one.
Well, ADUs do, but I don't think
Yeah,
any-
ADUs you, do, I mean,
I don't think there is one for a primary.
think so, but you still have to meet all clearances and.
You have to be able to fit
Yeah,
bathroom, bedroom.
yeah,
Mhm.
Place to eat and cook and then.
IRC has a bedroom size,
Yeah,
70 square feet.
you mean a generous New York apartment?
yeah, we're running into like these weird building types people are asking about, like small footprints, but they want it like tall.
Well, there
Mhm.
are height
Like-
restrictions and.
Yeah,
Stair details, all that, I mean, that.
sure it
that
is.
still all comes into play and how.
Of course.
Egress and all that, so playing hard.
That's why, yeah, there's like a split between what code would review for like a building permit and that sort of thing versus what the board approves through like the subdivision process.
Well, that's an interesting thing. I mean, there's lots of places that have like lofts and ladders and stuff like that in these little houses, but you have to have stairs, right?
Yeah.
There are standards for that.
Yeah, you
Yep.
can't.
That cuts into
You
this.
can't use a ladder,
Yeah.
that's a way up to a loft area.
I can't anymore anyway, but
Well, no.
Where is the minimum ADU footprint prescribed?
Yeah, what?
Where is the minimum ADU footprint?
There's section 6B11. Where we under lots and then, C11.
Yeah.
yes.
Luso or, yep, sorry, yep.
I don't go into too much
Nine.
detail with these subdivisions.
11 standards.
6B, 6B11 4.
It's
Beautiful, it might be 3, it's, the lot's only outside.
It's 3.
Huh?
6
Is
B
it three?
3.
Three.
That's only if you're wholly outside the shoreline.
page you on
6, but
614.
It's
Oh.
6 B 3. Page 6-14.
That's right. Oh, there you go.
accessory dwelling unit must
Minimum
be
190 square feet.
190 square feet.
That's small.
That's tiny.
Yep. It is.
Well, and that's
But
like,
keep in mind too, like all the egress, that doesn't alleviate openings of doorways.
essentially 190 square feet allows you to like have one of those like cabin ADUs on the back of your truck or something like that.
The
You can live in that year round though.
God.
Bigger than my boat.
Yeah, what and why are you referencing sprinklering of ADUs?
Just no,
The state law
The
is,
state, 1829 part of that is,
All ADUs?
no.
no, if it's,
can't.
it's not a requirement, if it's attached to a house.
Can't-
you're not gonna
can't
require it in
requirement.
ADU.
Yeah,
It's
The
a
ADU is
connected
attached to the
it.
house and it's two or fewer units in the house, you can't require a sprinkler system.
So go an ADU and you attach to a single family home or a duplex, you can't require sprinklers.
Right. But they're not required by the state.
yeah.
If it's attached to a triplex, you can require it to be sprinkled.
What do you think the board needs at this point in order to be able to feel comfortable saying that this is about ready to go to the lawyer for his
I think
red
it's
pencil?
about ready to go anyway,
Yeah.
but I think that for just the board's. Benefit, like I'll make that chart, comparison chart for the specialized subdivisions to make all that clearer. Yeah, I mean, in terms of drafting, I don't know if there is too much, again, besides tweaking it, and the biggest changes would be. Rewriting those sections of specialized subdivisions to not quite so eye-popping.
Right, I mean, in the original, we had cluster and workforce housing combined in one,
Yeah.
and that created challenges. And so at this point, everything has its own lane.
Well, I think now what would be good is just to get you guys. Kind of, I mean, we could do a practice with it so that you can use this as if you were actually reviewing and see how it feels and like. As you're actually using it, be like, oh, like this actually doesn't make any sense. To me, and then like
I mean,
make a note of that.
we're gonna have just another one of these slightly updated more for the 8th.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I can, yeah, I'll make sure I have the charts by the 8th too.
So you're gonna give us a quiz, is that what you're saying?
We can,
Here's the
I
facts.
think that's like the most helpful way to figure out if this actually works or not. But
Uh-huh. Well, I think I think the idea of having that chart that helps us figure out lot sizes and units and
Oh.
allowed, and because that's like scrambled eggs in my brain.
Yeah.
And as much of that as we can have, not only for us, but for people who will, applicants who will have to.
And I'm working on a checklist. I started outlining a checklist for this. Again, it's not finished, so I can't finish it really, but. Just outlining what the checklist will look like for you guys.
Yay.
It's,
Yay,
we like checklists.
yay,
They're very good to have for everybody.
yeah. All right.
Then, I mean, I guess it's just a general conversation is like looking, I guess it's hard without it in front of you guys, but I can give you my list, but. If you look at the 1829 requirements. That I read, I mean, like. Again, if some of them don't pass the state. Or don't pass challenges, like. Are there things that the town would wanna do anyway? Again, like I think like the 3 or 4 units not being subdivision as long as they're part of the same. Structure is like
Mhm.
something the town may just wanna adopt anyway for quicker reviews for the smaller projects.
Yes. Yeah, I would think yes.
The affordable housing stuff. Just makes sense to adopt anyway, I don't think those would get overturned or changed at all.
Mhm.
You already have one of them, and then same with the ADU stuff, I doubt that will get changed.
Maybe if we're doing charts for, figuring out, calculating what's allowed on different lots. If we did one that complies with all of these changes. Well, we could do that, but I wonder if we did another one that is like the draft is now. I don't know how different that would.
So I can say like a lot of these changes. Like the density and minimum lot sizes. That's actually gonna change the Luso and not the subdivision ordinance. The only way it would change the subdivision ordinance
Oh, sure.
is if you're trying to like. When you look at the specialized ones, it's like, okay, well, if we now do allow a 5,000 square foot lot. I changed that. Attainable one to 4,000 square feet, because originally I had a 5,000 square feet. I was like, well, that's not a bonus, because you have to allow that anyway. So now the 4,000 square feet was the bonus. But again, could just
Oh,
be,
right,
well, maybe
right.
you don't get a minimum lot size bonus anymore, and it is just a density bonus.
So I guess my sense is then do the chart as it would be if we followed this, and then we can look at, depending on your perspective, the best or the worst case scenario,
Yeah.
and then figure out what we wanna, if we wanna recommend all of it or some of it, or,
Yeah, right now, and then you can wait to do
yeah.
updates to it later.
Cause it would be lovely if we're gonna go through the whole process of doing a subdivision ordinance that we present to the voters, that it's in a form that isn't gonna need well, we can't tell what the legislature will do
Yeah,
at the end of the year, but
Let's change all.
I know, but any significant changes that we have to go through, it'd be nice to put it away for a while and see how it works.
Yeah.
Revisions to previously approved subdivision plans,
Yes,
so there's allowing minor revisions.
yes, so pretty much,
It doesn't create more dwelling units a lot, what about goes outside the boundaries of the lot line? That's not in here anymore, I mean, goes outside the boundaries of the previously approved subdivision. Maybe that'd be adding a lot,
well,
but
yeah, they're probably.
sometimes
if you're
people
doing
wanna-
that, you're probably adding a lot of dwelling unit.
people might switch.
Can you give me an example of a minor change to a subdivision that does not involve either splitting lots or doing?
Well, it
other-
says there's times that a
Yeah.
previously approved subdivision plan needs amending. The purpose of allowing a separate review revision to an approved plan is that small changes do not force an applicant to go through an entire subdivision process.
So it could be changing like a
Second.
right of way location, or like they had a fire plan to use like cisterns or something, and they're like, we're just gonna sprinkle the whole thing, they can come back.
Oh, okay,
And just say changing their fire.
I see.
Suppression.
I see.
plan, that sort of thing.
It would tend to be while it's under development.
No, I mean, it shouldn't be at development at that point.
It would be recorded and done and somebody
Yeah.
wants to.
No, well, I mean, oh, okay,
Revision.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, like the only reason that I can think of that a plan should come back while it's being developed is if like, I don't know, they like found a ledge that.
Yeah,
For some reason they didn't see when they were surveying the lot or
Mhm.
something like that, but then they sue their surveyor after that.
What about like a test pit change?
Be minor.
If it was on, the plan is here and now it's over here, does that matter? As long as
I would-
tests,
But
I
as
mean,
long as they're
I
tested.
suppose they'd be the ones.
All right, but I wouldn't make them come back for that, like, if they're still doing the same number of test pits, like if those location changed slightly, I wouldn't consider that like a. Reason to.
Cause
come
you're not
back.
asking for like building envelopes on the plans, right?
No, the only time they have to show floor plans, is for structure subdivisions.
About the access provision where it's in the ordinance and it allows the planning board to, for private roads. It's in our ordinance,
I mean, that would still apply, I mean, well, that only applies if it's not a subdivision, right, if it's.
yeah, if so, if like we're dealing with public roads or access, when somebody like has to extend or. Modify an existing private road, right now the land use zoning ordinance requires. Review, because they're the only ones that can give waivers on road standards, planning board.
Right, but that's, I mean, if it's a subdivision, that's coming all as one project,
No, it's not a subdivision,
right, plus I don't wanna go in here,
huh?
well, I wouldn't go in here.
They come here,
Although if it's in the Luso, but it wouldn't be in the subdivision ordinance. 'cause
yeah,
it's-
but the Luso kicks it to the subdivision ordinance, because they have jurisdiction. To modify or waive road standards, we can't do it in the land use zoning ordinance.
Right, but it's like the process wouldn't be in here, where it says you have to go use is the process in Luso, or it says this is what you do, but you have to use the road standards in subdivision,
Yes,
Yeah.
so that road
well,
standard
the
first.
Luso kicks it to the subdivision, section 514 in the subdivision ordinance, if you have to.
So it suggests to me that what you're doing is incorporating by reference the provisions of the subdivision ordinance in the Luso for those situations.
I mean, yeah, you could, cause like this road standards are just copy and pasted from what was in the existing subdivision into the new one, so like that's still there.
But like the very first section, like road standards, under section 3 is not in here.
But part of the Luso is
It was in the front, section 3.2.
two,
In the subdivision one, not Luso.
right, I wanna read where in the Luso it sends you to the subdivision.
Section 6B11. 2.
Access, yeah.
So if a road went modified or private,
For standards for new extended or modifications to existing driveway. Are in section 6B6, standards for new extended. Modifications to existing private road are in sections 5 and 4 of the subdivision ordinance. 5 and 4
it's
says.
just street. Section standard, section.
Oh, so it's the same as. Right, so this stuff is in the sub, so we would just change the cross-reference, right, in the Luso to be the cross-reference for here.
Yeah, cause 6.1.1 in the, under the subdivision ordinance waivers is where it tells the board has authority to. Waive the 514 standards, provided there's either like topography issues or.
Right, so that would be a change to the Luso then, because these standards are in the subdivision ordinance, we'd be
Right.
sending them to the.
Yeah, yeah, but that's not in the new one.
Well, the standards are in the new one.
Yeah, no, but like the front section, look in the subdivision ordinance, it's like 3 point, I think the beginning.
There's a, it's, okay,
says
the
road.
5 point.
Yeah, 3 standards,
Three,
road standards, excuse me.
road standard review, okay.
Yeah.
On the development of a lot involves access into a private road. For more than 2 lots.
3.27.
But so it's 3 lots that haven't already come for planning, for subdivision.
Yeah, like say it's not part of the subdivision.
Gotcha. I
I
mean, I don't. Yeah, I mean, okay,
mean, we gotta look at 6B11 again, look, Noel's probably told you that.
yeah,
Because of this last application we just had, where the access road was in the town of Mount Desert's jurisdiction, but the lot was in Bar Harbor.
see, what I would do is. If you're already sending them for private roads modifications to the standards. Without even referencing this, I would think you don't need this necessarily, you just change the title of the section in Luso
I
to
think
this.
that was added, I don't know, Noel added it.
He has keep written next to it in this
Yeah.
copy, but I'll talk to him about that, cause. There might be a better way of, right, cause this section's not mentioned at all, and this.
Right.
The sending of people here.
Yeah, yep,
And so like, you could just skip over this and it wouldn't even matter, So I'll talk to him to see what the, again, why it was in there and see what the history of that is.
yep,
I think one of the ways in which subdivisions, the whole density, change in density requirements is relevant to subdivisions is that it's important for us to be able to wrap our heads around. Those requirements and how they affect things on the ground in everything.
Yeah.
And you could get a much denser, more densely populated subdivision now than you could have previously.
that's what that's all about, is trying to create more housing.
Right, right. So, but for us to be able to understand,
Yeah.
like, it's like we look at something and say, geez, that's a lot of lots. Oh, that's a lot of buildings or something, but say, well, but here's what the law allows. So, yeah, it is, but that's the new world we're living in.
Yeah, it's the chart I've been outlining,
Yeah, that'd be good.
like
That'd be good.
what the new.
So it's gonna apply to everything, but including subdivisions.
Yeah, I mean, that would just apply, like, even if you're not subdividing, if you just create a new lot or split a lot, or so it's 2 lots now. They would have to follow the minimum lot sizes
Right.
too, yeah.
That would be very helpful. That would be our planning board training session
Yeah.
for this year.
We'll have to change a lot of our zoning. On areas.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, you shouldn't rush that for this year.
No, but I'm
Maybe
just
maybe
saying that's gonna,
27.
that's gonna be affected quite a bit.
Yes. I've already started to outline the table for zoning based off of some of that stuff,
Yeah.
but. I haven't spent too much time on it because we're looking at this for this.
Yep.
Right, Gail closed her laptop, we did
I
it.
close my laptop. I can open it again.
Well, no, but Gail had questions, I want to answer them.
Oh, well, yes, I did.
So.
You can answer in the privacy of your email.
I have them, so I'll just read through them. So she had asked, we talk about other ordinance provisions, the plan must comply with. And section 4.2.4 F of the new. Ordinance, which is.
So we don't say anything about shoreline zoning. And
I mean, like, so,
that's why I'm trying, like, did I miss that?
yeah, I mean, kind of, it's, so. It's broad enough that it essentially includes shoreline zoning. So 4.2.4 F is a requirement that says information shall in compliance with Luso and subdivision ordinances. The applicant shall submit evidence to the board to show compliance with. So as I said, that was the title of it, and then the applicant shall submit evidence to the board to show compliance with 1, section 4.4 of this ordinance. 2, section 6 of the Luso, and 3, such other regulations and ordinances referred to in sections 4.4 and 4.5 of this ordinance. So section 4.4 mentions shoreline zoning, And because that is a regulation referred to in section 4.4, 4.5 of this ordinance, it's included in here. And it's also in like the Luso, so it's covered in both areas. Yeah, like I can call it out if you want me to, but
I just want to make it as clear as possible for everyone, including moi.
I can add. I'll probably add an example at the end of 3 where it says such as other regulations and ordinances referred to in sections blah 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 of this ordinance. As the board may require such as drawings and.
Next one was my favorite question.
Next one was,
The availability of streams for disposal of effluents, I thought.
yeah,
The way, I
so,
didn't understand that. It's like,
Yeah.
it sounds like it's a bad thing.
no, effluent is really just stormwater. I mean, so there's supposed to be a plan where you're treating and holding the stormwater separately, but it still runs off somewhere. And so that's really what that's referring to.
Not in my diction, not in my, literally, I looked at, I thought, well, what are we doing with, what are we
And
doing in the
yeah,
dictionary?
I mean, for residential
Stormwater
projects,
retention.
you're not gonna have like. Purity of water, again, as long as they're doing a proper water plan.
Spreaders.
I think we should.
But again, like it's developable asphalt, so or developed asphalt, so there is going to be some effluent, but it's not like toxic. Really, as long as it's treated and held properly, you're more worried about the speed. At which the water is running off the property and how it's causing erosion.
So is effluence the right word if we're talking about storm runoff?
Again, technically it is, because there is dirtier water if you have impervious surface, but like. I could take it is like not necessarily like a. Perfect term, I can definitely change that and just pick
Okay.
something else.
Okay, 2.8.
4.3.
Oh, yeah, 4.3.8 says the applicant shall provide evidence that aesthetic, cultural, and natural sites are not adversely impacted by the subdivision by providing the materials requested in 4.2. Are we close to getting back to a compatibility provision here? And that's a little, that
I don't.
has
think
brings
so.
some vagueness into it.
As
that-
this, the point of this, because the point of the way it's written is it references to the materials that are required. You're really just following whatever the letters say, so Maine State Historic. Says that there isn't an issue with historical cultural
Okay.
assets, that's what you're following. If inland fisheries and wildlife says there's no issue with habitat or anything like that, that's what you're following there.
Okay, okay,
So you're really just following what the letter says based on that requirement. There are other requirements where you could get more in depth with like habitat and that sort of thing, but.
Okay.
And then the next one was why do requirements 4.3 not mention coastal properties, but every other type of water frontage is. It's technically, it mentions coastal properties if there's a coastal wetland abutting them, which is like most of the coastal properties.
Okay.
But again, like shoreline zoning plays into this too, which is what really protects those assets. The only reason I even mention like streams and brooks and stuff is because the state's subdivision law requires that they be mentioned.
okay.
Otherwise, I would have just referenced shoreline zoning
Mm-hmm.
law.
Okay, okay.
Kim, have we ever had a project where there's been an issue with like the Maine historical
That's a good question.
or
No, I mean, anyone that we've ever seen the letters, there's no, I mean, they show them on the map that there's like. There's been known, but they must have, you know, criteria there that.
says that or
Well, so I mean, the only.
Yeah, they do.
yeah.
There's the only example I can think of where it became like a discussion of topic of discussion during the meeting was there was a project along the Union River and. There had been like an archaeological dig done like decades ago and they had a historical record of that dig. Where they found stuff that was potentially of high value historically. And so it didn't prevent the project from happening, but they had to put up a buffer around where that dig occurred. And like, then some people did come and say like, well, what if there's more? And like, they asked didn't dig it up during that dig, and I'd be like, well, I'm not gonna make the applicant do an historical dig to find out, like. As long as they keep that buffer, that's like what the state was requiring, and so that was the only requirement.
You know, like England, like if the electrical company digs and they come across bodies, they're like not necessarily required to do, because they're like
Yeah.
everywhere.
Right,
It's like,
Nice.
and again, like. I am, planners are supposed to be really into historic preservation, I am a planner who is not. I have a personal bias against it, but I know a lot of communities do try and use it to like prevent new development.
Yeah, it can be pretty,
We had a project where we found a tombstone when we were
Oh.
digging a foundation and they stopped everything.
mhm. Well, you might want to investigate a little bit.
Yeah.
You may be digging up bodies or
Yeah, yeah.
but like, yeah, it's like glass or like.
It was not in this town.
Okay.
Next was, why don't we use cluster housing water? We already talked.
Yeah, talked about that.
earlier. And then, can we be explicit throughout the mobile home park, sustainable and affordable housing is for residential use of the occupancy, not for non-residents. It states that the purpose of sustainable housing, right, and that, but not in others, and is making the intent or the requirement good enough. I would say for affordable and attainable housing. You don't wanna have a too specific of a definition saying it's only for residents, where like. The definitions themselves saying you have to allow this median income to rent or buy. In itself is saying that like. They're probably gonna be for year-round use, cause there's no Airbnb person who's gonna say, okay, well, now I need proof of your. Income to show that, like, I can charge you this much for like a short-term rental, like that just doesn't practically make sense. But those projects only have to do that for 51% of the units. And so if like a project isn't financially feasible to make 51% of the units affordable. Without maybe doing like some short-term rental in the other 49%. You know, this is a policy discussion, you can tell me that you disagree, but I wouldn't wanna stop that project because now I'm getting rid of that 51% affordable units that could be here. But it was only financially feasible because they were making the short-term rental revenue on the other 49%. Again, I wouldn't wanna stop that project, I would let them do. Something like that, but you may feel differently, which is totally fair, and I can change that.
Well, I think it's something we need to think about. I mean, if we're gonna be. Making this town subject to greater and greater and greater density beyond anything that we've ever experienced.
I say. there
What
might be other
what
tools
use are we gonna
To
put it to?
restrict that might not be the subdivision ordinance, where it's like, if you are gonna start restricting short-term rentals, that
Mhm.
should just be its own. Process, that's where you might not wanna go too heavy on it in this particular ordinance. Like if you are concerned that, yeah, 51% will be year-round affordable housing, but then the other 49% won't. There's another tool that the town would have, which is a separate process and ordinance to restrict that other 49%
Right,
from being short-term rental.
that ball got left in the select board's court some time ago. I think it's. Can ask where they're at. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then. I'll just quickly go over this, that was the last question.
Yep.
I'll go quickly over this draft schedule that I have. So there's this meeting that we're in tonight, that's actually, so. Next meeting is October 8th, we'll go over this, you know, as a draft really one more time, maybe I'll have talked to the attorney by then, but in the Hamilton's new email, by the way.
You need his email.
You mind sending that?
I will.
Thank you.
Is he in private practice now? His own practice?
He is Katahdin Law.
What is it?
Katahdin
Oh,
Law.
Katahdin? Nobody stole that already? That's like pretty amazing.
And so really we have until like, yeah, the end of. October to get through discussion with the lawyer and get their feedback on everything. And so then I was gonna take the full, after October, really near the end of October, I was going to take. The full draft of this to the Luso committee on October 21st. And then I think there's another planning board meeting in between. October 21st and then the November 18th Luso committee meeting, but I also think I assumed there would be a
It's
meeting.
the first one and the second Wednesday in November.
Right, I think I just assumed that there might be a meeting where there's applications, so I wouldn't be able to make it to that, but so the next planning board meeting I have. For the lawyer.
And that's the only one in November and December, we only have one. meeting.
Well, 12th of November.
So the 19th of November, there isn't, or no, sorry, that was
So it's the 12th.
Yeah.
right, 18th is Luso.
Yeah.
As 19th was planning board submittal for.
Yeah, we don't.
Okay.
We have one meeting in December and one in November, and it's the
So-
second Wednesday of both months.
Second Wednesday, okay, so I'll come back for that meeting, unless you have a bunch of applications.
Yeah, well, whatever we get, I usually run it by Bill to see if he wants to add.
Yeah, so just let me know on that one. Um. I'll plan for the second Wednesday in November to be. Like the first, I mean, again, I'll have the chart for the 8th meeting, so we'll be done with that. I guess I'll be like really the first meeting with the final. Draft where you're really gonna want public comment, I guess, people to review it and stuff.
And at what point will you be able to work on some of the charts we talked about? Would that be for the next
I'm gonna
meeting?
try and have them. for
The next meeting for the
yeah.
8th?
Is there also, are you guys working on like an application? Subdivision application for someone to fill out?
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't have to get voted on, so.
Well, no, but it would be nice to
Yes, to have
see.
it, yeah, see how it dovetails.
Yeah,
So I can have. But I've done the first.
How would that
draft,
checklist?
It's probably gonna be that, or the other stuff that's not subdivision. So it is pretty much done then, so I can bring that and I'll have the checklist done too, you can look at the application and the checklist at the same time. So I'll plan to bring those for the December meeting for sure, but hopefully in the November, the first November meeting, the only November meeting. I'll bring those. Then yeah, there's the December 10th meeting, I think, is the date. And then the drop dead, I guess, date, the vote on them,
Christmas Eve?
no, I think, the last meeting to like really discussed and draft, like make changes or suggest changes to us, the January 14th planning board meeting. And then, again, I have a rough estimate from Claire, but it was early to mid February is when
Public hearing.
we'd have to have the public hearing going, yeah. And then articles are due to Claire February 23rd, and then there's a select board meeting to send to the warrant committee March 2nd. So really, yeah, we're looking at the public hearings in February, and then we have up until then to draft warrant articles are due at the end of January. So the January planning board meeting, we should have everything kind of buttoned up and ready for draft warrant articles. Yeah, I mean, I think we're in pretty good shape for that. Unless the lawyer, again, I don't think they will find a ton wrong, but. I'm open to it.
Thank you.
thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very thorough. All right, any other?
Motion.
None heard?
Go for it.
Then
Motion to dismiss?
Adjourn,
adjourn.
dismiss the class.
Mhm.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
I.
Aye.
Aye.